Hello, my strong friends. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to breathe. Yes, you heard it right. If you guys are new here, my name is Meg. I make videos about strength training, and today's video, although I'm talking about breathing, is going to be very much in line with how to breathe during strength training, how to best breathe for health. And of course, can you tell I'm 26 weeks pregnant right now? And one of the biggest changes that I made to my strength training regimen was breathing during exercise. So there's kind of three components to this conversation. One, introducing the diaphragmatic breath. Two, introducing the pelvic floor connection to the breath. And then three, doing that during exercise. We're gonna see how long this video will be. Maybe it'll be 3 parts to kind of break it up and make all of those concepts more bite-sized. We'll see how it goes. If there's a 3-parter to this, then don't be surprised. Sometimes my videos are super long. I hope you're watching them in 2 times speed. All right, so what is diaphragmatic breathing? Diaphragmatic breathing is actually the way that we all are born understanding how to breathe, but as a natural response to anxiety and stress, we somewhere along the way sometimes become like shallow chest breathers. So diaphragmatic breathing is when you utilize your diaphragm and the TVA, your transverse abdominis, your multifidus, and your pelvic floor. They all sync up to breathe with each breath. It's not like you're clenching and really activating and contracting those muscles, but they're syncing and moving so that you can get the most out of each breath. You breathe like 20,000 times a day. Did I say that? So even though it might seem like, I'm just a shallow chest breather, who cares? When you're doing that 20,000 times a day and not properly utilizing the muscles that are there to help you breathe, it could cause core dysfunction. And core dysfunction is especially something that we want to be aware of when we're pregnant or in the postpartum phase. And one of the biggest changes that I made during strength training was adjusting my breath and connecting the diaphragmatic breath to how I was breathing during exercise. And last thing to go with that, when you're pregnant, baby's taking up some space in here, so you have more and more pressure going down on your pelvic floor. You have less room for rib cage expansion, which we'll talk about, and less room to actually breathe. So if you're already breathing really shallow breaths and you have a baby taking up even more space, it's gonna be even harder to breathe. A lot of people report that it's really hard to breathe during pregnancy. That could be the case even if you're perfectly doing everything correctly. So we wanna maximize what we're doing for each breath of the 20,000 per day. Let's go into some exercises. I'm gonna back up a little bit so that you can see me. I'm gonna teach you how to breathe. Let's go into the actual practice of practicing diaphragmatic breathing, transitioning from however we're breathing to being more aware of something that I'm gonna refer to several times. It's gonna be 360 expansion. First, let's take our hands and place them on our ribs, fingers pointing to the midline. Just try to relax a little, relax your shoulders. If you're up here, try to just shake it out, relax, and just breathe normally. Don't stress. You have the rest of your life to understand how to do this. Not that you shouldn't be practicing it right now, but if you don't get it after watching this video one time, that's totally understandable. We're putting our hands on the sides of our ribs. And as we're breathing, I want you to bring your attention to your rib cage. So you might be able to see mine already. Think about expanding the rib cage laterally so that with each inhale, you're expanding the rib cage and pushing into your hands that are there. So one thing that might help is you can think of the rib cage as like an umbrella that's opening up and expanding out back into your hands, and you're breathing out to the sides. So take a few breaths with that and try to feel that sensation. And when you exhale, you'll start to feel the pressure that's going out laterally on the inhale. You'll start to feel that pressure just go away from your hands. So it'll kind of be this thing where you're breathing into the hands, you can feel it on the palms, and then when you exhale, you're starting to like bounce back and like retract back. Your umbrella is kind of closing away from your hands. So do that for a few more breaths and just focus on that rib cage expansion. Expands and let it fall away. it expands, and let it fall away. Once you kind of get the hang of that, honestly, that's most of it for the diaphragmatic breathing piece, which is great. Let's keep it moving with a next step. And you may have heard this before if you're like in the lifting community, belly breathing, and people thinking about expanding into your abdomen. That's okay. That's a better kind of cue than like breathing into your chest. But we're focusing on the lateral expansion in the rib cage first, and then we're gonna try to feel the abdomen rise. So bring one hand above the belly button, still focus on that lateral rib cage expansion, but just notice the movement in your abdomen, in your torso. So feel your ribs. You can keep one hand still on your ribs. So now we're starting to get 360 degrees of breath. Do a couple more breaths, maybe like 5 to 10, where you're focused then on feeling the torso moving. Now, we're not focused on pressing our belly out against our hands. We're just noticing that kind of gentle belly movement. Okay, so we're almost finished because we've got our sides, our front, and then now we're gonna focus on our back. Take one hand, you can keep one hand on the stomach or one hand on one side of the ribs, and then take the back of your palm and put it in your back. Now, this is probably the hardest part to feel. We're going to focus now on the expansion in the back to get the last bit of that 360 expansion. So now, you can practice this seated like I am right now. You can practice on a stability ball or a birthing ball. You can do it standing if that feels good. It might be a little harder. Or you can do it lying down or on your side. So there are a ton of different ways you can do this. You just want to continue this exercise. And in my prenatal program, this is something that we'll start every single warm up with diaphragmatic breathing. You'll also see a ton of power lifters who will start with breathing exercises before they're getting ready for serious training, because it truly is really important. Controlling your intra-abdominal pressure and managing it is a great component of strength training. Now, there are some troubleshooting techniques that you can use. You can find a TheraBand. This isn't like a resistance band that I usually use, but you can get these on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. And you can take the TheraBand and put it around the rib cage. So kind of gives you a different kind of feedback and a little bit more resistance to think about that lateral rib cage expansion. So I'm using the breath to push laterally out into my band. You can make it a little looser if you want, or a little tighter if you want to feel more resistance to get more of like a tactile feedback. And if you're someone who knows that you're a chest breather, you know that you have shrugging movements with every single breath, or your chest rises and falls and you can't seem to get away from it, that's when I'd encourage you to move on to the lying down exercise and focus on pushing out gently into the abdomen as opposed to into the chest. Getting that to where you're able to kind of control the breath into the belly might be a little bit easier than thinking about pushing into the rib cage to start. It really just depends, and different cues are going to work for different people. So I would try that if you're really struggling with this. Okay, I've been recording for over 10 minutes now, and I want to make sure that each individual piece doesn't get too long in duration for a video. So I'm going to cut it there and make a part 2 where we connect that diaphragmatic breathing with the pelvic floor, and then maybe a part 3 where I'm going to discuss how you can use the connection breath during exercise and what that means for exercise. So hopefully this was helpful. Please let me know in the comments down below if it was, if you liked any part of this video, or if you have any other tips for people who are interested in this topic. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you're new, subscribe to my channel. Last thing, I do have an email list if you yourself are pregnant and want to either follow my pregnancy journey or get wrap-ups of things like this that I found really helpful during my pregnancy, all while strength training. So check that out if you're interested, and I'll see you guys in the next video.